Welcome to the NBA 411. I'm Alex Loeb, and with the NBA playoffs scheduled to start in just a few weeks, we're keeping a close eye on some head coaches who may be teetering on the brink of termination or simply fighting for survival. NBA analyst Tom Penn tips things off with a look at what the future holds for two men on opposite coasts.
Alex, first and foremost, let the stories play out in New York and LA. This is all about how they finish in the playoffs. Can the Knicks get that star power towards a championship trajectory? Mike Woodson, so far so good, but they may need big-time coaching talent to harness that playoff experience and get to the finals. Then out in Clipperland, this is a different team than Vinny Del Negro joined. It's now a veteran-laden, star-laden, playoff-ready team. Can he harness that energy? The front office needs to evaluate that and maybe look in a different direction if he cannot deliver. But this whole thing is premature. They must see where the season ends, gauge their players' opinions, and take it from there for the good of the franchise.
Well, as far as the Clippers are concerned, after going 32-50 last year, Vinny Del Negro's club is playing above .600 ball this season, and True Hoop blogger Kevin Arnovitz has more now on the latest from the City of Angels.
Alex, when the Clippers came out of the gate 1-13 last season, Coach Vinny Del Negro did a nice job keeping his young players engaged and motivated, and that's no small feat. Paul Westphal couldn't do it in Sacramento, and now he's out of a job. Now, the Clippers have a very interesting decision to make. The question for them going into the offseason is, can they do better than Del Negro? They hold a team option on him, and barring a very deep run into the playoffs, it's likely they'll look at coaches who have vastly more playoff experience as they make a big run in 2012-2013, which happens to be the contract years for Chris Paul and Blake Griffin.
What do the Clippers do with Vinny Del Negro this offseason? It's pretty simple. Ask Blake Griffin and Chris Paul what they think. Now, none of this is to say that either of those players or their agents have gone to Clippers management and said that they want Del Negro fired or another coach hired. But Blake Griffin's up for a contract extension this summer. Chris Paul is up next summer. And I think it's pretty simple that both of them are looking for the answers to two questions. Are the Clippers committed to putting the championship roster around them? And are the Clippers committed to giving them a championship coach? Now, Del Negro has had 2 years to convince Griffin that he's that type of coach, and he's had 1 year to convince Chris Paul. Is that enough time? Well, probably not, especially in this lockout shortened season, but that's the reality. And there are great coaches like Jerry Sloan, Phil Jackson, Nate McMillan, Mike D'Antoni, and maybe even Monty Williams, depending on how the New Orleans Hornets new owners, what they decide to do. With those are all great options. The Clippers would be wise to consider them, starting, of course, by asking Blake Griffin and Chris Paul just what they think.
Thanks, Ramona. Now let's turn our attention back to the mecca of basketball known as the Big Apple, where Mike Woodson has turned around the Knicks' fortunes, and our NBA insider John Hollinger looks ahead to what the Knicks will do after the season ends.
Alex, in a vacuum, of course the New York Knicks should keep Mike Woodson as their head coach. They've really responded to him, especially at the defensive end. He has them playing some of their best basketball of the season. It would seem to be a no-brainer. But things do not happen in a vacuum. This is New York, and the Knicks are going to be a major lure for a lot of top-flight candidates, most notably among them Phil Jackson. If he wants the job, they'd have to give it to him regardless of how well the team has played under Woodson. I think you also look at guys like Stan Van Gundy who might become available, Jeff Van Gundy, guys like that. So it's an open question whether Mike Woodson actually keeps the job, but he's definitely done well enough to deserve to keep it. Two, unfortunately, very different concepts.
If the Knicks make the playoffs, and that's a bigger if than many Knicks fans want to admit right now, Mike Woodson will have done one of the best stopgap coaching jobs in NBA history, and I think for that reason alone, he deserves another shot to coach this team next season. Who knows if he'll get one? You never know what's going to happen with James Dolan running the show. Remember, last month, Mike D'Antoni stepped down after losing a power struggle with Carmelo Anthony. Now, Dolan is a big Anthony guy. And I think this, though, is maybe where Woodson has another advantage. Carmelo Anthony seems to be buying into what Woodson is selling so far in his brief time on the bench. And if that continues for the rest of the regular season and into the playoffs, it makes it look like Mike Woodson is even more so the right man for the job next year.
Thanks, Ian, and we'd like to remind you that there's plenty of NBA action on the ESPN airwaves this week. On Tuesday, we've got a scintillating doubleheader as the Celtics and Heat square off at 7 p.m. Eastern, and that'll be followed by a rematch of Sunday's overtime thriller between the Knicks and Bulls. Then on Wednesday, more Knicks hoops as they head to Milwaukee to take on the Bucks at 8 p.m. Eastern, followed by the Warriors and Blazers. All games, by the way, will be on ESPN and ESPN3. That'll do it for this edition of the NBA 411. I'm Alex Loeb. Thanks for watching and enjoy the games.